News analysis, giving you all sides to the story. We bring in-depth discussions on the issues that matter, from politics to sports, entertainment, and lifestyle.
The truth doesn't wait, power doesn't pause, and neither do we. I am Jerry Alpelioi, and this is the issues where we break down the stories others fear to touch. With me, a fearless panel of expert analysts ready to expose the facts, challenge the powerful, and give you the raw, uncensored truth. Now, here's what you need to know. A Kenyan court declares the abduction of IPOB leader Mazi Nnamdi Kanu illegal, a judgment that sends shockwaves across two nations. Meanwhile, Nigeria's oil giant faces sabotage from within. Bayo Ojulari speaks out on the fight to clean up the sector. And in Rivers State, the war between WIKE and FUBARA reaches a dramatic pause. But can peace last? This is the issues. We'll go on a quick break. We'll be right back with all the conversation to stay with us. Welcome back. Let's dive straight into today's discussion. A Kenyan High Court in Nairobi has ruled that the abduction and transfer of Nnamdi Kanu, leader of the indigenous people of Biafra IPOB, from Kenya to Nigeria in June 2021 was illegal and unconstitutional. Justice Isi Mwita found that Kanu was abducted, detained in solitary confinement, tortured, and denied basic necessities before being forcibly removed from Kenya without due process, violating both Kenyan and international laws. The court ordered the Kenyan government to pay Kanu 10 million Kenyan shillings, about 110 million naira, in damages for violating his fundamental human rights. The judgment held both the Kenyan and Nigerian governments responsible for breaching Kanu's rights, emphasizing that he had entered Kenya lawfully, and should have been protected under its constitution. Meanwhile, IPOB hailed the verdict as a landmark victory and a vindication of their position that Kanu's transfer was not a legal extradition, but an unlawful extraordinary rendition. The group thanked their legal team led by Professor PLO Lumumba and vowed to pursue international accountability for all involved parties, including former President Muhammadu Buhari and Uhuru Kenyatta. Today, I'm delighted to be joined by three esteemed guests here in the studio. We have Dr. Peter Nosike. Dr. Nosike is a philosopher, development economist, and best-selling author. He is also an erudite commentator on economy, finance, politics, and power. Great to have you join us.
Happy to be here.
Always a pleasure. And joining us virtually is Chief Dr. Emmanuel Iruyanema, a social, political commentator and an advocate of good governance. He is also a seasoned and licensed human resources practitioner, a management consultant, chartered mediator, and conciliator. We understand he's not yet with us, and we'll also be having Mazi Amobi Ihegboro. He is a public affairs analyst who will also be joining us virtually on the show this evening. But let's first of all take on Dr. Peter Nosike. Taking a look at the situation of Nnamdi Kanu, it looks like it gets interesting each day. How can Nigeria continue to justify the trial and detention of Nnamdi Kanu when a foreign court has now ruled that his transfer was illegal and in gross violation of international law?
Well, for me, I've told you on this program that it is Nnamdi Kanu that's supposed to be prosecuting the federal government. That the federal government infringed on the rights of Nnamdi Kanu. This position has been confirmed by the Kenyan High Court. And this is also, there's a conspirator, Kenya is also part of this conspiratory, understand me, or illegality, because Nnamdi Kanu was arrested and detained in Kenya. He was arrested, detained in Kenya, handcuffed, chained, tortured for many days before being illegally extradited to Nigeria. And one of the cases that Nnamdi Kanu's legal team argued in court was that he was abducted, kidnapped, understand me, and taken to Nigeria, which the DSS, one of the witnesses said that they did not know how Nnamdi Kanu get into the country, that's into Nigeria. Then how was Nnamdi Kanu found in their custody? Since you did not know how Nnamdi Kanu came into Nigeria, why did you keep him that's in your custody? So the Kenyan government did the right thing. And now it has become obvious that it is federal government that is guilty of this, that's of the whole thing, not Nnamdi Kanu.
Okay.
So it is a victory for justice. Understand me? In Nigeria, we don't have we have a legal system, but we don't have a justice system. So a justice system in Kenya has proclaimed justice. That Nnamdi Kanu's rights were infringed upon by the Kenyan government and the Nigerian government. So the High Court in Kenya found the Kenyan government guilty and also found the Nigerian government guilty of infringing on the rights of Kanu.
Okay, well, we now have with us talking about Chief Dr. Emmanuel Nama. He is a social political commentator. Good evening. Great to have you join us on the issues.
Good evening, listeners.
We're just taking a look at the case of Nnamdi Kanu and the latest judgment from Kenya, which says that he was illegally extradited from Kenya. And it looks like the case has been judged in his favor. And the Kenyan government is to pay him some very interesting amount of money as compensation. Taking a look at this judgment, does this judgment not expose both Kenya and Nigeria as rogue states that disregard the rule of law when it suits their political interest?
Well, straight to your question, yes, as the judgment is. Illegal rendition cases are not peculiar to these two countries. They are cases that happens once in a while around political interest holders. For me, I would have wished to look at its implication for the case of treason against Kanu in Nigeria. Like we all know, what illegal rendition brings to bear are issues of evidence admissibility, whether or not the courts are going to be following due process, human rights implications, and maybe international cooperation, and so on and so forth. Those are the basic things that we're looking at. The way and manner you pursue a case and the defense you put forward will give us the picture of the result you get from the other end. The Nnamdi Kanu's case, for me, is neither here nor there. Governments all over the world will tell you that what matters most to them in circumstances like that is territorial integrity and the fact that everything that becomes a threat to her is held, as it were. But at the outside, this judgment will indeed, like you did say, shows the place of the rule of law and what we call national security.
Okay, very interesting way to look at it there, Chief. And let me now go to Dr. Anosike. Okay, you're still with us. Let me go to Dr. Anosike. What does this ruling say about the credibility of Nigeria's legal system? If it's relying on an illegally obtained suspect to prosecute a politically sensitive case?
Well, the issue is this, the man in Port Harcourt is talking about that what matters to Nigeria is their territorial integrity. Okay. But Julian Assange, the WIKE person in America, who leaks very sensitive materials, both from the FBI, CIA, and so forth, he ran to different other countries. Understand? America know where he was, but they never give any order for him to be. American government did not send the CIA or FBI to go and kidnap him. They did not mandate any other country to extradite him. They follow the due process. And this is somebody who leaked very, very sensitive information from the FBI and the CIA, which ordinarily should be an act of terror, leaking national sensitive issues. But America, who has the most powerful security in the world, the most powerful intelligence in the world, they did not go to where he was hiding to abduct him. They did not mandate or the country, bring him to our country or we bomb you. Due process was followed. And Kenya had become, as I said, somewhere else, Kenya had become a Judas in Africa. There was a Ugandan opposition candidate that was also extradited from Kenya to Uganda, the same way that Nnamdi Kanu was extradited. So the question, why always Kenya? Why always Kenya? So for me, the judgment has solved one of the problems that the rendition of Nnamdi Kanu to Nigeria did not follow due process. Understand me? And that government erred by infringing on its fundamental human right.
Okay, let me now go to Chief there. Shouldn't this court ruling trigger sanctions or international consequences against those who orchestrated the abduction and torture of Kanu?
I've said before that one of the outcomes of a judgment of illegal rendition is as it regards to international relations. Beyond that, the fact remains that every nation is sovereign. I want to choose my word very carefully because Nnamdi Kanu has not himself been found guilty of the things they've accused him of. But ordinarily, nobody should commit crime and then think that he will use the law to hide himself, particularly if it impinges on the sovereignty of a nation. So how nations go about pursuing matters of national security are personal to a large extent. Laws are there quite well, but laws are meant to guide all of us. But beyond that, yes, at international phase, there are what they call best standards. Best standard presupposes that you follow a given process. But again, you and I will also ask ourselves, that same process does product is seemingly protecting another person who stays somewhere else and keeps on committing certain havoc at another end. Your right to the right to everybody ends where the right of the other person begins. I cannot stay in somebody's house and be stoning you and ask you to fold your hand, or ask the person in whose house you are to also fold his hand and not push me out if I'm continually stoning. So it doesn't make sense, right, left, or center for me. But beyond all of that is the fact that yes, at the international level, nations have what they claim to call best practice, and so it has implications for both countries.
Yeah, definitely. Consequences. What are the consequences against those who orchestrated the abduction of and torture of Kanu?
Well, this is Africa. This is Africa. That's the third world nation. Understand? A country that is still at the primitive stage of existence. Understand? So it's not going to have any consequence because the government doesn't even obey the laws. It's understand me? The government disobeys the laws that they initiated. So it's not going to have a consequence either on the Nigerian government or on the Kenyan government. Understand? But we are not an island of our own. Yeah. The international community is watching, and they are taking notes. And when Donald Trump called Africa a shithole, he was saying the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Because this is a continent of that's a jungle continent. So it is not going to have any consequence on the part of the government. I say, with all the powers that America has, they did not go to kidnap Julian Assange. They allow the due process to take its course. Because that's where laws are respected, people are civilized, understand me, and things work according to order. This is a continent of animals, so anything goes.
Let me go back to Chief, because this is really interesting. In light of this ruling, do you believe the international community has failed to hold African governments accountable for cross-border human rights violations? It looks like it's a free-for-all now. I mean, the African leaders are now doing things differently, and nobody is acting as the international watchdog like it used to be back in the days.
Sent drones to Palestine recently. Let's be fair to ourselves and stop calling ourselves names, because it's very dangerous. Every country has respect for our nations, and we must begin to learn how to respect our nation. Did I Trump across Africa, or did Nigeria a shit country? How shitty is America? What has been America's role in Russian and what's the name's war? What's America's role in the current Palestinian war? Who makes anybody actually got to look after the other? We must be very careful the way we call ourselves names. And that's part of the problem we have. You do not, and I said, give you an example. You can't stay in another man's house and be stoning another person. It doesn't happen anywhere. There are two things inside. Either I push you out of my house, or you go to where you want to stay and stone. You can't use my house as the stoning point. Laws are not one-sided. Laws are actually general. To what extent was that same law protecting a country like Nigeria, where somebody stays somewhere and is creating problems and killing, naming and destroying things in Nigeria? We need to be very careful how we call names. It's not an issue of being sentimental. Every nation has its own problem, and they are peculiar to them. And Nigeria will not be out of it. While we expect things to improve, this is our country. We must be able to protect it. Yes. America, that supposedly is a super world country, super law-obeying country, went to countries like Iraq and created problems. Which law did it obey? Which law did it follow? I am not saying, and I want to repeat here, I'm not saying that it's very proper to flout your rules, but circumstances are things we need to look at. And I've said that before. If a nation's security is, that nation has the right and powers to do everything within her reach to protect her people. And within that circumstance, anything can go. It's a national thing.
So you are backing what the government did under Buhari administration.
If the government thinks, and that's what I want them to prove at court, if the government indeed believes that his actions were a security risk, how they bring him is not a problem to me. But it has to be proved, and that's what I'm waiting for in the courts. It has to be proved that indeed he was a risk. Indeed, he was a threat. So how he came in, for me, is nothing. If he was an actual threat, you can't hide under somebody's roof and be stoning somebody. Who does that?
Yeah, okay. It seems like Chief is banking extreme measures. It doesn't matter how they go about it. Let's not forget there will be a day or so the tables will turn. If talking about the government is being allowed to take extreme measures in situations like this, what now happens? Because now we even see a situation where influencers and so on and so forth are being bullied and arrested without pure justification. So if it happens to Nnamdi Kanu, what is now stopping it from happening to others eventually?
Jerry, Africa, particularly Nigeria, is a shithole country. I want to say it again. Africa, particularly Nigeria, is a shithole country. We are being ruled by beasts. We are being ruled by beasts and not humans. Nigeria is being ruled, governed by beasts. The only thing that separates humans and animals is law. Where law is not being obeyed, that country is a country of animals. And that's what Nigeria is. Any country that doesn't observe rule of law is a country of animals. And that's what Nigeria is. So when somebody say, no matter how somebody is brought in, doesn't concern him, understand me? That shows you the mindset. And that is, so Kenyan government, Kenyan High Court has found the government guilty of what they did. They also indicted Nigeria, saying that what Nigeria did is not good, that the role that their own country played is not also good. I have said it here over and over that Nnamdi Kanu is supposed to be the one prosecuting this case and not the other way round. I maintain that, I will always continue to say it. Nigerian government infringed on its fundamental human rights. Nigerian government infringed on its fundamental human rights. What Buhari did now is what he did in 1984 when he sent criminals to go and abduct Obaru Diko from UK. It's the same man, it's the same person. And that's why Fenda called them animals and human beings. So this is a country of beasts.
All right, Chief, definitely I know Dr. Anosike is definitely not having it, but let's just keep the tempers down and of course look at the issues that's on ground because definitely these are issues that has to do with human rights violations and cross-border politics and of course international relations as it concerns anybody, because it can happen to anybody any time, any day. Okay, let's go back to the next conversation because of time, where A major political reconciliation has occurred in Rivers State as the Minister of the Federal Capital Territory and former State Governor WIKE announced that he and Governor Similaye FUBARA have resolved a long-standing rift. This development followed a closed-door meeting brokered by President Bola Tinubu at the presidential villa in Abuja. WIKE confirmed that both sides had agreed to end hostilities and collaborate for the progress of the state. Governor FUBARA also expressed gratitude, describing the peace deal as a divine intervention and emphasizing the importance of unity and peace for the state's development. He pledged full commitment to maintaining the fragile peace and ensuring that Rivers State moves forward without further conflict. The political field, which began shortly after FUBARA took office in May 2023, escalated to the point where the President Tinubu declared a state of emergency in March 2025. The crisis included impeachment moves, a bond legislative complex, and the appointment of a sole administrator. With this new agreement, both leaders aim to restore governance and stability in Rivers. Dr. Anosike, after nearly 2 years of political warfare and even a state of emergency, how credible is this so-called peace? Let me take this one to Chief first of all. Sorry, Dr. Anosike, just put a hold there because definitely you just took the last point. And let me go to Chief there. After nearly 2 years of political warfare and even a state of emergency was declared, how credible is this so-called peace deal? Or is it just political theater orchestrated under presidential pressure?
Sir, you answer the question yourself. Political pressure.
Yeah, I'm asking. What is the difference?
You answered.
What is the difference?
You answered the question. Because the truth is this. The truth is this. As far as I'm concerned, the truth we see is a cowed truth. And I've chosen my word carefully. It's a cowed truth. President Tinubu's intervention from the beginning had just one purpose. And that purpose was to cow the governor to obeying whatever President Tinubu's merchant tells the governor. And again, I've chosen my words carefully. We remember the attempted first reconciliation and the so-called agreements and how they were couched, as it were. They were meant for just one purpose. Perhaps seeing that did not fly, he felt he needed to use a stronger presidential power by illegally appointing a sole administrator, an illegal sole administrator. A sole administrator not known to the laws of our land, not known to the constitution of this country. For him, he had cowed him enough. While they have not told us the real terms of this agreement, or the so-called truths that have been reached now, you could also see that they've merely used this emergency rule thing to further tie the gentleman's hand, I mean the governor now, hand, to agreeing to whatever terms that must have been reached. From the grapevine, we've heard a few things. How the present minister for Abuja, former governor, WIKE, will have to share some political offices. They have prepared the ground very well. Appointed for the first time in the nation, under a civilian rule, a non-Rivers person to come and head the electoral commission of the state. Part of it are the things they've done. With a mandate, even though they have not told us that publicly, we understand there's a mandate to produce certain persons on their own without an election, as it were, or something that will look like an election. Wherein they are dividing positions. If you look at those cameras of the reconciliation, you will find something very interesting. A factional chairman of a party, the president's party in the state, being part of that, and a prominent anti-governor, the governor, a person that is completely anti the governor. You find him in that picture, standing right behind the governor, as it were, in the picture you just showing now. You find a whole lot, out of all the persons you find there, there are persons that are pro WIKE. And you just kept the governor there as if you are. If you look at the picture tells you a whole lot of the video. You look, it tells you a whole lot of things. It tells you how the governor has.
The governor looks like he's under arrest.
That's what I just told you. So the trust for me is a cowed trust. It's a cowed truce. And I'm not blind. They are waiting to see the outcome.
It seems.
It's not Rivers State.
Okay, Dr. Emmanuel,
One person.
I find it difficult to hear you due to the technical glitches coming from
Rivers people are waiting to see what the outcome will be.
Okay.
We are waiting to see what the so-called chairman first do. They said, we want to see it.
Okay, Dr. Emmanuel, let's put a pause on that because we can hardly hear you. Let me take it to Dr. Anasike in the studio. I just stumbled upon an inside report that part of the agreement was that FUBARA will not be running in 2027 for a second term. So, does that look like a peace deal, for instance, or Nyesom Wike having his way? And some have looked at it and said, it's now like Nyesom Wike will now be heading the governor of two states. He'll be the governor in proxy of Rivers and still be the Federal Capital Territory Minister, Abuja.
Well, for me, the Bible says what we sow, we must reap. And with what we measure, will be measured unto us. So this is not the first time that governors, that some elected governors has kind of disowned their godfather. Understand? It happened in 2005 with Ngige and Chris Oba. Understand? It happened with Ngige and Chris Oba. Chris Oba, Ngige, until he ran as a governor, was a medical doctor.
Yeah.
Ifeanyi Oba was a businessman. So Ifeanyi Oba sponsored his election. Understand?
Okay.
And the agreement was that he will be taking some share that's of the Anambra State allocation. Just as Emeka Ofo, who sponsored Mba Dinuju in 1999, was taking a part of Anambra State allocation. So if Anyoba decided to do the same,
okay.
He even took Ngige to Okija Shrine to swear that he would be very, very submissive and loyal. So at the end of the day, Ngige rebelled. Understand me? Ngige rebelled and lost his election in court. But he didn't go out of office because of the might of Ifeanyi Oba and Andy Oba, who was very close to Obasanjo at that time. That's also the case of T.A. Orji in Abia State, who was Orji Kanu's chief of staff for 8 years, and Kanu single-handedly made him a governor. Understand? And there was an agreement that any check above 50 million naira, T.A. Orji must not sign that check without getting the consent of Orji Zakando. So at the end of the day, T.A. Orji successfully rebelled. So, but Rivers is a different state. Understand me? Rivers is a very, very different state from 1967 when it was created, and it's not going to change. Understand me? It is not going to change. So what I saw there, there's no peace because there cannot be peace without justice. There cannot be peace without justice. So anybody that is telling you that a peace has returned to Oriva State is deceiving himself. Understand?
Do you expect the governor to go through with the peace deal? If, for instance, there's a clause that he will not run in 2027, do you expect FUBARA to go through with that deal?
No, Tinubu's concern is just 2027. He just wants to win in 2027. Whatever happens after 2027 doesn't concern him. So all these moves is to secure his 2027. I have told you on this program that Rivers State is one of the swing states in Nigeria. So anybody running for president in Nigeria will want to win a Rivers State. So all these meetings, intimidations, harassment, state of emergency is to secure Rivers State and not about the people of Rivers State. And not about the development of Rivers State. For the past 2 years, development has suffered in Rivers State because it is not FUBARA that is feeling this. It is not WIKE that is feeling this. It is people of Rivers State. It is development that is being denied in Rivers State. But WIKE is not interested. Tinubu is not interested. Their interest is to secure Rivers State in 2027. So even if no road was started until then, it's not his business. Understand? So and you call this that's a democracy? It's not. We are being ruled by beasts.
Let me go to Dr. Emmanuel. Doesn't this entire saga from impeachment threat to a fire damaged assembly and a state of emergency expose how fragile and undemocratic subnational governance has become in Nigeria?
The truth is that over the years, we found something very funny with our structure, with our systems. Sometimes I sound as one who do not want what a lot of persons ordinarily in sane climes would want to call rule of law. And the reason is very simple. We've had situations where our own laws seems to be made to protect a certain persons alone. And obeying them will mean perpetuating those persons no matter what they represent. And that's dangerous. Now, if you look at what the subnationals, first let me say this, and for the records, Nigeria is the only federation where the federation creates this federating units. I challenge any political scientist to come and tell me otherwise. Otherwise, one would have asked herself, what level of independence do the federating units have in a federation like Nigeria, where one man in the name of president or being a president can unilaterally remove a governor? That's the madness of the first order. Nigeria perhaps is one country where we have 3 tiers of government. But indeed, in real practice, we have only 1 tier telling the other tiers what to do, at least from what we can see in the present National Assembly, and indeed even in the judiciary, as it were, as of today. So we have a problem in our hand. So if you begin to ask me if it is not a threat, it's a full-blown threat. From what President Tinubu has succeeded in doing in the past few months, it means he can get up one day and tell the governor of Lagos State, you've been fired. He can get up one day and tell the governor of Katsina State, you've been fired. He can get up one day and tell the governor of Kaduna State, you've been fired. And that's a dangerous trend that all Nigerians must look out for. It is political madness of a sort. It is only in military governance we have that kind of experience. But that's where we are. And that's what Nigerians need to begin to see, to think out with how to work around it. Our lawmakers will not help us from what we are seeing. Because they only make laws to protect themselves and their bellies. That's all. So we need to ask ourselves, what ways do we get, how do we get out of this whole thing? It is a pity. My country. I'm in Nigeria.
It is a pity. But taking a look at the clause which is coming out that he will not run in 2027, do you see Sim FUBARA following through with the peace deal eventually when he is returned as governor and not wanting to contest for re-election in 2027?
By looking at the disposition of the man, he had already told you that his mind is off government house. So if you take from there, yes, he may not want to. But I will tell those of them that have mooted the idea one thing. That Rivers is neither FUBARA or WIKE or Tinubu's. The calculations will fail in 2027. They should mark my word today.
Okay.
We are aware of the game played by Tinubu. His own game is 2027. We are watching. Rivers State will disappoint Tinubu. He should mark my word.
What about WIKE? He still has a hold on the state.
He has a hold on a few persons. He doesn't have a. If WIKE had a role, a real hold on Rivers State, Tinubu would have allowed him continue. The party was continuing, but Tinubu saw it clearly that he doesn't have the hold. It was clear.
Okay.
Tinubu knew that he needed FUBARA to a large extent. That's why he's playing the game. That he's merely playing a game with FUBARA. He knows.
Okay.
But what perhaps he doesn't know, is that the people's support for FUBARA is not FUBARA. That the people's support for FUBARA is for what FUBARA seems to represent in the circumstance. And that's two different things that perhaps they've not played on. That people still have their own game apart from FUBARA. So that should be what they should be looking out for.
All right.
The Rivers people have their own game in this game. And until the Rivers people are completely part of this peace process, whatever they do with FUBARA and what FUBARA agrees or does not agree doesn't matter to the real Rivers man. We have an enemy we know.
All right. Quite a very interesting way to look at it. Talking about it's now.
That enemy today is.
All right, Dr. Emmanuel, thank you very much. We are pressed for time. We would have loved to go on and on because we even have a very interesting update as far as the situation of talking about the APC chairman is concerned, where information reaching us is that Abdullahi Ganduje, the national chairman of Nigeria's ruling All Progressive Congress APC, has resigned from his position. Although the exact circumstances surrounding his resignation are unclear, sources suggest it was due to mounting internal opposition and pressure from stakeholders in the North Central region who had been advocating for the seats to return to the region. And Ganduje's resignation comes after speculation and rumors. Of course, Dr. Anoski was one of those who predicted this, and you will say, I told you so, Dr. Anoski.
Well, the former national chairman of APC from Nasarawa State did not complete that's the tenure, not his tenure now, the tenure of North Central.
Okay.
So another person from North Central should have emerged. Understand me? To complete, because this is a part of their zoning agreement.
Okay.
So another person should have emerged. And if Tinubu really care about the image of his government, both Nigeria and beyond, Ganduje is the wrong person to be given that position. Because at that point in time, they were battling with his corruption cases.
Yeah, it seems like the president doesn't care with the people.
He doesn't care. He doesn't care. He's using his Machiavellian tactics. The end justifies the means. Understand? So that's why he doesn't care whether or the person that he appointed to an office is a beast or a human being.
All right, Dr. Anderson.
All he needs is for his desire to be achieved.
Thank you very much, Dr. Anderson. Thank you very much, Dr. Emmanuel, for being awesome on the issues this evening. The stories we uncover tonight are just the beginning. I am Jerry Apelohai, alongside our sharp, unyielding panel of experts, always ready to push for truth, demand accountability, and hold power to the fire. This is the issues where nothing is off limits and the truth is non-negotiable. Stay vigilant, stay engaged, and never let them silence the voice of the people. We'll be back soon with more. Have a great weekend.